Hello, thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Herbert, and this experience occurred on November the 14th, 1992. Open quote. Over some few years, as a group of friends, I had met with Vietnam veterans troubled by post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. My contribution to these men was one of support, listening to their stories as they became available. Part of the relationship we held was one of helping them to develop storytelling skills and to develop an environment of some spiritual dimensions within which to enable them to regain their individual sense of spirituality. I introduced them to Native American ceremony to establish common spiritual grounds without specific denomination, as these men had varied backgrounds in faith, practices, and denominations. As a matter of common humanity, it was necessary to establish a denomination free environment. It seemed to be a common factor in combat veterans afflicted by PTSD to have either rejected the faith practices in their background or, more commonly, to have rejected and felt rejected by their faiths as a result of the casualties of armed combat. As the others in our group who met with these good men and women, the veterans, we each offered friendship, empathy, and affection to them. My own practice was that of fasting on the Saturdays we did meet. This helped me to prepare myself to literally walk in blood with these wonderful people. On Saturday, November 14th, 1992, we would meet as scheduled with a small group that we had been meeting with for some 5 years. For some reason, the veterans called in and variously excused themselves for that day. A good friend, Virgil, the owner of the place where we met and held our Saturday sweats, decided to continue on with the ceremony for ourselves and our own needs. Some 45 minutes into the sweat ceremony, I had a feeling of heaviness and some discomfort within the left side of the chest, as if heat was accumulating there. Also, leaning on the colder ground seemed to relieve some of this pressure. I did have a mildly upset stomach, but I could attribute this to being on a fast. However, I asked to step outside and regain some breath. I felt some need to relieve the heat in my left side. Once outside, with a beautiful view of San Pablo Bay, in the silence of the night, I just wanted to relax, to let loose. The bay waters seemed filled with bubbles of light that danced and moved, sometimes against the currents in a kind of dance. I was very attracted to the unusual spectacle, but did not seek for any meaning or significance to it. It was just beautiful, and as I told my friend of this, he just agreed. Only later would he tell me that he never saw anything. We returned to the sweat lodge to complete the ceremony. The only out-of-place event that gave me some pause was that each time I would close my eyes to relax, I had the feeling of being somewhere else, on a journey across some field. But again, I dismissed it to tiredness and fasting. At the end of a third round of the sweat, the tightness in my chest begged me to end. I asked my friend for his opinion, and he agreed. We completed the ceremony according to tradition, as a matter of respect, and left for his house, where we would enjoy a light dinner. By now, my stomach was really upset, but as I was fasting, I just did not attend to it. I took a piece of candy. As I ate it, my stomach settled down. I thought this was confirmed, that my discomfort was due to a long fast, which I was just breaking. I felt a little light-headed, but nothing of concern. As we sat down to dinner, salami sandwiches and coffee, I suddenly got dizzy. My chest did not hurt. I felt as if I was being strangled, but I could breathe far more air than before. It felt as if my breastbone was being separated and torn apart. Now I did feel concern. My friend asked me if I was having a heart attack. And no, to speak the truth, I felt no numbness of the arm or jaw and those symptoms, other symptoms commonly listed. Of course, what he saw and what I felt must have been very different things. But I did find myself very concerned and asked him to take me to the local emergency services at Kaiser Permanente's hospital in Richmond, some 20 minutes away. He did, and I'm grateful that he did so. As we left the house, I tried speaking to him using some humor. He looked so very worried, and I did not want to impose upon him the discomforts of what I still thought were the result of my fasting throughout that day. Then I became aware of exiting the car through the window and watching my friend and a carcass fast fading down the street. The empty body beside my friend seemed to be me. I just thought it odd, as other events were beginning to take place. These I must reserve to myself until I can make good sense of them. After moving through the surrounding landscape, I found myself in the same place that had been in my thoughts during the ceremony. Open, broken, hilly grounds with a path that led upward to the side of a nearby mountain. The path became a cobble-stoned path that, at the entrance of a tunnel, forked into the tunnel and also veered right toward a place of dirty lights where much noise was made. 2 steps later, or so it seemed, I had covered a few hundred yards to the edge of a canyon that caused me great fear, just a disagreeable, incomprehensibly ugly place full of ashes, barbed wire, and burning torches that burnt with the yellow-green color of sulfur. Something inside of me held me back, and I found myself within the tunnel where I could see through the walls a field full of stone people. An inner voice quietly said that these are they who wait for the reality of intellect. Eyes lost in the distance, waiting for life as idea to become reality, as life went before them, free to be what it is. At the end of the tunnel, or the top of the stairs, there was a sliver of light, and there is where I went. I think I had an inkling on my own death at that moment, but I knew that I could not cross a threshold I could not see. As I turned to climb down the stairs, I fell backward and found myself on the other side of a gate that was not there. There was no way out. The place was an endless field, full of grass and flowers of all colors and trees that sang quiet songs, and they were all welcoming me. Me? Who the hell am I that they would do this? I thought. Why do they welcome me? I took a path that continued toward a place where bright lights shone, some kind of structure, full of people by the thousands, and they all cheered and welcomed me. I knew that I am not any kind of hero or person of importance, but they were rejoicing in that I had come. Then, out of the bright lights came members of my family, many dear people that we had lost over time, my grandfather, aunts, uncles, cousins, and even those whom I only knew in pictures, and my childhood friends and their relatives, and they all came to greet and welcome me. I could not make sense of what was going on, but I did suspect, I think, that I knew I was dying. Then there were some beings whose muscles were not flesh, but flame, fire contained within the shape of legs, arms, and so on, and full of light. They greeted me, and after they all left, only 2 remained. One that looked at me, someone I knew or am bound to know, someone of extreme importance to my life, but it left climbed above the trees and waited there. The other being was behind me. I turned to my family, but they had become quiet. The whole world had become very silent. Then I became aware of a kind of light, shining with the brightness that is more than all the suns in the universe, white, bright, and crystalline, and very much alive. It stood before me. Somehow I knew that I could not come into that light. So I turned back, then up, then down, and there was no hiding from the light that took me into itself. I now knew that I was dead, and that whatever else were to be, it would so be now. This most holy being and spirit, the one whom no word can name or describe, took me into his arms and bid me welcome. Then he said, "Are you done?" I instantly knew I was dead, and now was called to account for my small and unimportant life, and I could not lie. In an instant that will last forever, I saw my life from conception to death as one single and whole event, not as separate parts of a jigsaw puzzle, but as a complete and inseparable whole, and I knew that my life was complete. I was done. The light, this most holy spirit, took me into itself, in an embrace that will haunt me to the end of my days and beyond. For an endless instant, I knew love, and I knew myself loved beyond words and descriptions, just infinitely loved, and I saw through the eyes of spirit what spirit sees. There is no mind to understand that vision. It just is. Then the voice asked, "Is there anything you would like to do?" I did say that I would like a few minutes to set my family at ease, to leave no remorse nor regret for them, just for a few minutes to say one final "I love you." Always have, always will, no matter what. Our struggles, stupid fights, angry little moments, nothing ever kept us from being loving to each other. The one who is above all names released me from his embrace and said, "Go." I said no, and I was terrified. I had said no to what I hold most sacred. I knew that there is no life I could want any more without him. My desire for him was much greater than my petty little fear. The light said, "Go," and I said no. The light said, "Go," and I began to feel a separation, a distancing. But as a gift there was that which the light gave me to see, perhaps what lies within my own heart and soul as to what the faith I embrace promises, and I also saw that there is a point or a place beyond which no one may not cross, for to do so it makes everything else final. Some of these things of vision and feeling I have kept to myself. I know that I cannot explain them nor give them meaning, and I cannot look for answers from others because their explanations eventually become empty speculation, and this is very painful. I think to understand that to be human is to be more, much more than we have allowed ourselves to be, and that there is so much possibility we deny ourselves as we become locked into being rational, into being limited by rational proof. This NDE is at once a blessing and a curse. As a minister, although minor clergy, I have had to reconcile as much as possible with tradition and teaching as my denomination expresses. And the truth is that there is almost no one whom one may query to seek out the terms through which to approach an answer. For 10 years, I left the ministry, embracing the quest for an answer. Unfortunately, is not just an answer, and there is no answer to be really had. I have lived in a Native American reservation, sought saints and holy people of other ways, and found mostly emptiness and speculation in the name of faith. I found myself embracing solitude rather than wasting time retelling a story. NDE is not a mandate, not a commissioning to holiness. I can, as any other human being, make a claim to holiness without ever being touched by the sacred. And the mindless repeating of a story that cannot ever be fully told, is loath to me. I am a simple, uninteresting, semi-rational, ordinary human being. My wife sometimes doubts that. And I am constantly making mistakes, laughing about them or apologizing, and still in search of an answer. As far as I know, I was conscious of where I was, who I was with, and what we were doing. The inipi, sweat ceremony, does keep you very much aware of that. End quote. Wow. I thought that was a great story. There's a whole lot of different things I thought that were interesting and just well described just fully. And wasn't it interesting when he went to the path, he took the tunnel, he could have taken the other path, but when he took the tunnel, he saw into the other path of where there was dirty noise and looked like, what did it say, stone people? I thought it was interesting how he talked about other people really don't understand what I saw, and their interpretation of what I saw would be speculation. Although it did seem he went on a journey to find out what he saw. Doesn't even appear that he knows what he saw. So interesting. There are some questions. Did time seem to speed up or slow down? Was minutes, days, or hours, although it only happened in a fraction of less than 20 minutes between the onset of the NDE and waking up in an emergency room? Question, did you hearing differ in any way? Answer, music and a choir, voices, not as voices, but as an awareness of a voice/sound perceived without physical senses. Question, did you encounter or become aware of any deceased or alive beings? Answer, yes, they were there. In all the places of this journey, I had the feeling I knew them all, or rather that they all knew me, whether I remembered or not. And as to communication, I was struck by the fact that nothing happens by voice or sense of perception, yet there is an answer to whatever question is desired. Questions and answers are both universally posed and given instantly. One does not know, then everyone and everything knows. It is only proper to call it communication, yet ordinary senses function as one. Question, did you enter some other unearthly world? Answer, fields full of flowers of every kind, color, and texture, grasses and trees of brilliant green hues, earth the color of gold, an amphitheater, and the very sacred precinct of that which is most holy, and the great barrier which the living cannot cross. Question, did you suddenly seem to understand everything? Answer, at this time I would decline a description. I am grieved by what I have yet immense need to reason and understand within the poverty of my intellect. Wonder what that means. Doesn't sound good. I don't know. Question, did scenes from your past come back to you? Answer, my past flashed before me out of control. I learned that given the opportunity, I would not choose to live any differently from what I have experienced as life. I would just choose better words to treat others with, not to remake the past, but to leave nothing hurtful or incomplete behind. And there is a future for mankind worth working for, but I should keep this in silence, my choice, as I am trying to understand some of this myself, and I am definitely not a gifted intellect. Another clue. Question: did scenes from the future come to you? Answer: scenes from the world's future. Question: did you reach a boundary or limiting physical structure? Answer: this boundary may not be crossed if one is to return to life. This I was given to know, although I was allowed to see what lies beyond it, and expressly requested to not go beyond the place of wholeness. The description of the place contains certain elements that I believe are reflected in sacred scripture, and as such may well be very subjective. But to the one that goes beyond this mark or milestone, life in the world is no longer possible. Question: did you come to a border or point of no return? Answer: I refused to return, refused whom I hold most dear and sacred, and who had granted my temporary return to my family. I felt fear and great sadness, for I was refusing to leave life. But I was told go one final time, and I began to fall, or descend, into a bright, shiny mist. Question: what was your religion prior to your experience? Answer: moderate Catholic. Question: what is your religion now? Answer: moderate Catholic. Question: did you have a change in your values and beliefs because of your experience? Answer: yes. I left my ministry because what I believed in and what I came to know seemed somewhat contrary to each other. I could no longer teach, claim, or proclaim certain tenets of faith in the light of what NDE allowed me to experience. Question: was the experience difficult to express in words? Answer: yes. Certain elements of the experience appear unavailable to the restrictions caused by language, as they do not yield to dissection. Events have an unmistakable sense of wholeness, which the elucidation of parts is seemingly not possible. I never heard it quite expressed like that. Question: are there one or several parts of your experience that are especially meaningful or significant to you? Answer: knowing everything and not knowing anything. In remaining an ordinary, off-the-shelf human being, now full of curiosity and seeking answers. Question: have you ever shared your experience with others? Answer: yes, with my immediate family, lightly, and with my friend Virgil, who took me to the hospital, and with 2 or 3 other people because I thought I could learn something from them. Then it is very difficult for people in general to respond to any conversation that has this kind of substance, and sometimes frightens them, and for some it is a very difficult matter. However, without referencing NDE as a source, grief counseling, speaking with the dying, and as a minister to others, it is always possible to enter into deeply intimate conversation that results in more profound peace and understanding for those I have the privilege to serve. Question: at any time in your life, has anything ever reproduced any part of the experience? Answer: yes. Preaching, healing prayer, guided imagination, meditative healing practices evoke certain memories of the NDE in a useful, contained way, without diminishing the power of the human spirit, a good beginning to ministry to others. Question: is there anything else that you would like to add about your experience? Answer: yes. There is a question of integrating the whole of human experience as it has been my lot to live. Imagination, old dreams remembered, superstitions, all of those things of developing a spiritual life? Is there somehow a connection to what and how one has lived and resolved / not resolved the lessons in life? How one has individually and intimately sought to seek the meaning of life that may predispose one to such thing as an NDE? Why? Why me? End question. End quote. Why? Why me? I don't know. Thank you. I definitely enjoyed it, Herbert. I hope you find out. And I appreciate everybody for listening. Have a great day.